Let's dive right in. Albert Einstein absolutely redefined the universe, but he did it while his personal life and literally the entire world collapsed into total chaos. We usually picture him as this serene, unshakable icon of wisdom, right? Maybe sticking his tongue out for the camera. But to truly understand his genius, we have to look at the crucible where his greatest work was actually forged. So in this explainer, we're zooming in on the years 1914 and 1915. This was a period of intense, agonizing micro and macro chaos that nearly broke him. To kill in wartime, it seems to me, is in no ways better than common murder. He wrote this exact phrasing years later in a 1952 letter, but it perfectly frames the immense political and moral isolation he faced decades earlier during the outbreak of World War I. This wasn't just a retrospective stance, it was a lifelong core belief. When nationalism swept up his colleagues in this absolute frenzy of patriotism, Einstein saw it as nothing less than common murder. And that set him on a very lonely, very dangerous path.
Section 1. Berlin, 1914. The Gathering Storm. Things moved incredibly fast. Back in the spring of 1913, two of the absolute foremost scientists of the age, Max Planck and Walther Nernst, actually traveled to Zurich. They came with an offer Einstein simply couldn't refuse. It was a massive career triumph, pulling him from Switzerland straight into the heart of the German Empire in early 1914. But just months after he unpacked his bags, the entire continent exploded into war.
So why take the risk of moving to Berlin in the first place? Well, the perks were just staggering. He was made director of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Physics and granted automatic membership in the Prussian Academy of Sciences. This gave him an unbelievable platform. A professorship with 0 teaching duties, that meant he could concentrate entirely on his research. Plus, the prospect was a lot more attractive because it brought him geographically closer to his cousin, Elsa Löwenthal. The two of them had already begun a clandestine correspondence.
But wow, the timing was disastrous. Escalating geopolitical tensions were everywhere. You had colonial rivalry in Africa, the dangerous vacuum left by the collapse of Ottoman power in the Balkans, and a fierce naval race between Britain and Germany. It all exploded into the macro chaos of World War I right as he settled in. The quiet academic sanctuary he was looking for completely evaporated. Germany's invasion of neutral Belgium drew massive international condemnation, and it totally fractured the European scientific community, which up until then had been really collaborative.
Section 2, the Pacifists' Rebellion.
While 93 prominent German academics, and we're talking Nobel laureates here, like chemist Adolf von Baer and medical pioneer Paul Ehrlich, signed the Manifesto of the 93 supporting Germany's military actions, Einstein stubbornly refused. No way was he signing that. Instead, he helped draw up a counter-petition called the Manifesto to the Europeans. He literally pleaded for an end to the violence, arguing that Europe's common culture had to be harnessed to stop the war, promoting a deeply internationalist vision.
I was well aware of the dreadful danger for all mankind. His staunch refusal to bend to this militaristic nationalism left him deeply alienated from his professional colleagues. He wrote that quote later about the application of science to destructive ends, specifically the atomic bomb. But that dread, that fear of science serving the military, it began right here in 1914. While other scientists were aligning their work with the fatherland, Einstein pushed back, making himself a total outcast in his own new academic home.
Section 3. A marriage collapses. Now we have to look at his personal life. Mileva Morik, who was a brilliant mathematician in her own right, never wanted to go to Berlin. She was immediately unhappy there. She clearly sensed Albert's growing closeness to Elsa, and the harsh reality was that Einstein was, frankly, just not capable of being a traditional family man. But Einstein's reaction to this friction was shockingly clinical and deeply, deeply flawed.
In mid-July 1914, to maintain the marriage merely as a convenient veneer, Einstein essentially demanded that Mileva reduce herself to a silent, unpaid servant. He literally laid out a list of degrading conditions. She was to clean his clothes and bedsheets, deliver 3 meals a day directly to his study, renounce all personal relations, expect 0 physical intimacy, and immediately cease speaking to him if he requested it. It's a really stark reminder of the massive chasm that can exist between towering intellectual achievement and profound interpersonal failure.
Talk about the ultimate pressure cooker. Think about this timeline. Mid-July, he issues these brutal demands. July 28th, World War I officially begins. Literally the very next day, July 29th, unable to endure the degradation anymore, Mileva takes their 2 sons and flees back to Zurich. So on the exact same week the world tears itself apart, Einstein's family leaves him, rendering him entirely alone in a hostile, war-hungry city. Section 4. The masterpiece forged in isolation.
So, how do you redefine the universe while your own world is completely falling apart? How do you focus on the cosmos when your dolly reality is crumbling? Amidst a poor diet, strict wartime rationing, profound loneliness, and the stress of a fractured family, Einstein didn't break. Well, at least not intellectually. Instead, he threw himself obsessively into a decade-long intellectual pursuit that he had been working on since 1905. He was actively trying to move beyond Newtonian gravity. See, Newton saw gravity as this mysterious pulling force, but Einstein proposed something incredibly beautiful and geometric, the general theory of relativity. He realized that observable gravitational attraction actually results from the curvature, the literal warping of space-time itself by heavy masses, like planets and stars. He was desperately seeking pure mathematical order, a single origin for physical laws, amidst the terrible human chaos surrounding him.
But, as if the immense stress of the war and his divorce wasn't enough, he wasn't running this race alone. He was locked in a frantic, exhausting sprint against his contemporary, the brilliant German mathematician David Hilbert. Working over in Göttingen, Hilbert was independently arriving at nearly identical mathematical conclusions for the theory at the exact same time. Einstein was absolutely terrified of losing the priority of the discovery he had spent a decade building towards.
In late 1915, this race reached its climax. Despite the immense pressure, the sheer force of his intellect triumphed. He actually visited Göttingen to present lectures on his findings to Hilbert and others, and then raced back to finalize the impossibly complex differential geometry entirely alone. Within days of each other, in the winter of 1915, both men finalized the math, but it was Einstein who successfully published the completed general theory of relativity, presenting it triumphantly to the Prussian Academy.
Section 5, Physical Collapse and Recovery. But the pressure cooker finally exploded. The relentless strain of intense, isolated study, combined with the really poor diet of wartime rationing, completely broke Einstein's health. The immense intellectual effort of birthing general relativity essentially destroyed him physically. It led to severe stomach ulcers, liver issues, and eventually a total physical collapse in the years that followed the war's end.
And here is where his personal life shifts again. With Einstein severely incapacitated, his cousin Elsa Lowenthal stepped in. She nursed him back to health. This severe illness became the real catalyst for his recovery and cemented their relationship. Eventually, Einstein finalized his divorce from Mileva, interestingly, handing over the monetary promise of a future Nobel Prize as a settlement, and married Elsa in 1919. That was the very same year a solar eclipse definitively proved his general theory of relativity to the world, turning him into an international superstar.
Einstein unlocked the most beautiful, elegant secrets of the universe while simultaneously navigating, and sometimes directly causing, deep human suffering. It really leaves us with a heavy question. Can we ever truly separate the world-changing science from the messy, flawed reality of the artist himself? Think on that for a bit. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and until next time, keep questioning the universe.